All right, everyone. Welcome to Digital Conversations. I am your host, Billy Bateman. Today, I'm joined by the legendary Dave Elkington. Dave, how you doing?
I'm better now that I'm on the show. This just made my day, maybe my week.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad we could do that for you.
Thanks,
So,
man.
dude, for those people you've been on the show a few times, but for anyone that doesn't know who you are, just give everyone a little intro.
Yeah, so I co-founded a company called InsideSales. We've rebranded as Zant. We really created the market around how to use data and process and math and science to respond to kind of digital and marketing generated leads. Like that's kind of really
Yeah.
the thing. In 2009, most people, if you don't know me, you probably know some of the research in my studies. We did a study with Professor Oldroyd, who was at MIT at the time, where we identified the need to respond to marketing generated leads within just minutes versus days and weeks. And I sit on the board here at Chat Funnels and happy to be involved.
Awesome, man. Well, we wanted to talk a little bit about the evolution of solution selling. And so I just wanted to let's just start off. You've been in the space a long time. What are you seeing as that evolution in solution selling, and especially like with COVID and the digital transformation we're undergoing? How has solution selling become more digital?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and the concept of solution selling isn't necessarily new. So if you kind of think about the way people buy, there's really two core buying models. There's a consumer buying model and a B2B or a business buying model. And I think, and if you think about like if you just go down to Nordstrom's and you're buying something, or if you're going to the mall and you're buying something, there's a couple of things versus you're spending $100,000 or $1 million on a purchase. There's a few variables that you have to pay attention to when you think about selling. One of them is your price point, as I just brought up, right? So if
Yeah.
you're spending a lot of money, you're going to be very cautious about that spend. The second thing is the complexity of what you're selling. So, and I know we're kind of getting right into it, but it's a pretty interesting topic, and it's actually very very relevant as you think about what's happening in marketing, not just sales, but in marketing. And I want to get into that with you in just a minute. But if you consider the price of something you're selling and then the complexity. So if you're just selling bolts, everybody kind of knows what a bolt is. Or if you're selling cell phone services, right? I've got my phone right here. You know, people now know what services are. I mean, there's not a lot of variability. It's like, oh,
Yep.
do I have this screen or that screen? Is the plug in the bottom or is it in the top? Like, there's really not a lot of variables. So simplicity and price allows for a very fast purchase process, which means you don't need a complex selling process. On the flip side, if it's very expensive or if it's very complex, you do. So let me ask you a question. What did you have for lunch yesterday?
Some chicken.
Okay. How much did you think about that purchase?
Not very much.
Not much. Okay, so you probably left the office before you even knew what you were going to get. You probably made that
Yeah.
decision while you were in line. You're like, the chicken looks good.
Yep.
Well, you didn't pay that much for the chicken, I assume. I assume it was a
No.
pretty reasonable
Couple
price thing.
bucks.
Couple bucks. And then you kind of know what chicken tastes like. Like there's not a lot of
Yeah.
like you kind of know the play. Um, when's the last time you spent over, let's say, $10,000 on something? If you'll share
Ooh.
with the group.
Yeah. Let me think about that. Had to get some surgery that was not covered by insurance. That was
Okay.
about $10,000.
How much time did you think about that purchase?
A couple months before it wasn't like I have to do this or I can't function, but it was like you probably should do this. Is what the doc told me.
It,
Um, so yeah,
how many
yeah,
people did you
It was
advise?
probably 3 months.
Okay.
Um, so I met with the doctor probably 3 times before I was like, okay, let's just do it. And then talked to a few other people, 3 or 4 people that were not my doctor, but related. And they were like, yeah, he's telling you the right thing, before ultimately doing it.
So I would wager you talk to your wife. I know you're married.
Oh
I
yeah.
would wager you talk to your parents
Yeah.
to get their advice. I would suspect you probably talked to a best friend or two who kind of, gave you some advice, and then maybe
Yeah.
some of your siblings, right? So your buying
Yeah.
committee, if you think so that you take, to buy chicken, it takes you about 10 seconds to make a decision. To get plastic surgery, just kidding, I don't know what the surgery was. To,
I don't
to
look
get
good enough to have plastic surgery.
to get that handsome, you took 90 days and probably talked to a half a dozen people at least that are in your buying committee. So the solution selling, um, and kind of throw the title today, selling is becoming increasingly complex, and it's because the variety of options of the kind of things that we can buy to solve our problems at work or at home are increasingly complex,
Yep.
increasingly available, increasingly diverse. And so the challenges as sellers and as marketers we have is we've got to learn how to communicate the uniqueness and the difference of our product in a way that can uh, address all of those questions people have in a much faster, succinct, efficient, effective way. Because look, as a seller or a marketer, we want to communicate. First, we want to be able to find the people who are likely to be benefited by our products, and we don't want to bother people who aren't interested in it. So we've got to really understand who our buyers are and who they're not, and then we've got to really shortcut that process. So if you think about kind of the more traditional Miller Hyman selling process, there's going to be a lot of people. There's lots of different selling techniques, and if you've ever
Yep.
been in sales, like there's spin selling, there's solution selling, there's the challenger sell, there's Myers Briggs, there's Miller Hyman. There's a lot of different
Yeah.
methodologies. The more complex selling process is like a Miller Hyman selling process, where you basically you identify a buying committee. So you say, okay, well, there's your coach, the person who wants to buy from you. There's a person who has the budget. There's detractors, people that you need to get approvals essentially from, like IT or legal or finance. There are, there's typically between, call it 4 and 12 people in any kind of buying committee, whether it's a consumer buying committee, like you had a buying committee to help you
Yeah.
make that decision, or a B2B buying committee. The problem with that is now that COVID's come in, especially, and in the last 10 years, we've seen this, but especially with COVID, that buying process, that buying committee is not happening at trade shows. It's not happening
Yeah.
as I come on site to do a site visit. It's got to
Yeah.
happen digitally. So that's the problem. The problem today, every seller or marketer is faced with, is how do I bridge this gap of engaging and communicating the value, uniqueness that of what I sell, of my products, um, digitally, in a way that people, I can build that trust, and shorten my sell cycle. And so here's an example. What percent of the people, what's a typical B2B website conversion rate? You probably know this number.
Yeah. Anywhere from like 2 to 8% seems to be where people are at.
I think that's a good range. Now that sounds good, but what basically you're spending millions of dollars to get people onto your website, or at least hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of dollars a year. That means somewhere between, call it 92 and 98% of the people you're spending money to try and communicate with go away. You actually don't even
Yeah.
know who they are. They never come back to your website. You have no engagement with them. So that's ultimately the problem. So really, there's what we're seeing emerge in the market is this ability to communicate um, with buyers, and and especially that buying committee in uh, a digitalized way. And the label for this thing is called, and we've seen it in marketing. Just a marketing focused side was, we've seen it called ABM, account based marketing. And
Yep.
really, what account based marketing means is I'm not going to market to you, Billy. I'm going to market to the entire account or the entire buying committee. And so, basically, if I'm selling into sales, I know, I've got to get the the CRO or the VP of sales. I got to get the sales manager. I've got to get somebody in finance engaged. I got to get somebody in IT engaged. So I need to have different messages and different marketing tactics to each of those. But the market has moved past just the marketing. We need it's called ABE, account-based engagement. And there's a great article we ought to put in your post that BCG, Boston Consulting Group, published around this new market or this new approach of ABE or account-based engagement. And the concept is whether it's a lead in the marketing process, if it's or a visitor, or if it's a prospect or an opportunity, somebody who's actually engaged in the sales process, or if it's an existing customer, we need to be thinking account-based engagement, and we need to do it in a digital way. So let me share a couple of the tools, but let me ask you right now. So when your account managers are or consultants are engaged with an account or a customer, how many different touch points do they have? Like, how many different people are they working with typically?
Man, all depends on the size of the company. Like startup, it could be 2 people they work with. But a mid-sized or even an enterprise customer, man, you're working with anywhere from 8 to even 20 different people. Like they're not interacting with all of those people every week, but within a quarter, they're going to interact with at least once, those 20 people.
Okay, so let's say it's 20 people. And if you've got an account manager, we're not talking in the marketing, we're not talking in sales. I'm just talking in the account management side or the customer engagement side. Let's say it's 12 people they should be engaging with on a monthly basis. How many accounts can that person really manage if they really are doing that?
Man, that is hard to say. I mean,
here are the numbers.
10 to 20, maybe, if it's really, 12 people they've got to interact with consistently.
So the math, the Bessemer data is it's roughly, they should be managing $2 million of ARR if it's in a software or some kind of recurring revenue model. So what if your deal size is, if you're selling in a large enterprise and you have 100K deal sizes, that might be manageable. It's 20, that's 20 accounts. But think about that. That means if you have 20 accounts and you're engaging with up to 20 people per account, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
Like how do you touch base with that many discrete people every month in a meaningful way? I actually don't think the math works. So you have to have technology to do this.
For sure.
So the technologies that we're seeing, and it's emerging, it's this concept again of ABE that really BCG coined. And I know you guys are doing a lot of this stuff. We're seeing Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense is doing this. Zoom Info is solving these kind of problems. We know Demandbase is beginning to solve these kind of problems. But you guys, my understanding is really Chat Funnels is really the first in the conversational space that is really trying to solve this conversational engagement space. But the tools, the first thing you have to do is number one, you have to know who is actually on, which accounts are engaging in your sites, your products in your sites. So of those people, the 100% of the individuals coming to your website, you need to have a reverse IP lookup tool. That is table stakes. And what that'll tell you is which companies are visiting your site or logging into your products. And it's not the people you already know. It's in many cases, it's the people you don't necessarily know. So, and this helps on the marketing side, the sales side, or even the customer engagement side. Yeah, bless you.
Thank you.
So that's capability number one. If your company is not doing that, then you're basically just spraying and praying. You're shooting in the dark. You're basically back in the dark ages. So number one, you need to get some kind of reverse IP lookup tool that will tell you that it exposes your dark funnel, the people you don't know who are on your website. That's number one. Number two, you need to then create a personalized experience for those visitors based off of a segment. So you have to segment all of these visitors. Actually, really, number two is the segmentation. You have to say, okay, I'm going to group my visitors into different categories, like my customers, my
Yep. My
prospects,
prospects,
people I have opportunities with,
my
um,
target 100, whoever it is, like these are my hot list. Yep.
my investors,
Yeah.
my employees, my family members. Like they're, look, whatever. Like there's categories of people that you would want to have a different experience when they come on your website. So again, identification, reverse IP tools, things like that. Number
Yep.
two, you need to go to the work of segmentation. Um, Number three, what you're going to want to do is you're also going, as a subset of your segmentation, you want to know who can buy from you. So it's a simple exercise. Go to your existing your customer base and just profile them. And so you'd say, look, what you're going to learn out of this is we sell really well into the following industries. We sell really well into the following geographies. We sell really well into the following revenue segments or employee count segments. Because we want to sell to enterprise, we may not be good at it. We may be really good
Yep.
at selling to mid market or micro market. And so just it's a simple exercise. Take your entire customer base and go categorize three things: their geographies, number one; number two, their size by revenue and by
Yep.
employee count; and three, by industry. Like that, go find where your clusters are. And what you want to do is you want to go create personalized experiences for those clusters. So, meaning if somebody in the healthcare industry in the mid market space is on your website or using your product, you want to make sure that they experience it in a way that's specific to them, that increases the likelihood they understand your value. So that's number three. Number four, you then go create those experiences. And one thing that I've seen you do, and we're seeing other organizations begin to do, is alter the website experience. So I know that you can create custom conversations, custom bots, custom
Yep.
experiences based off of these segments. So that's the fourth thing you do, is create custom experiences for those organizations. And then you want to create custom follow-up, which is number five, follow-up custom reach out. So again, think that complex Miller-Hyman selling approach, where you've got people who are in the IT segment of your, again, back to my example, healthcare, mid-market, North America, in fact, let's go Midwest. Okay, then you go one step below and you say, okay, well, now we have a company who's on our website that is mid-market, healthcare, Midwest, and I have someone in the IT segment. Okay, I want to communicate a message to someone in IT because they represent an approval role I need. They tend to be detractors or blockers from our solution. So I'm going to change my messaging or their experience completely from a budget holder or completely from someone who's going to be a coach of ours on their website. So really that's kind of your last step, is create custom experiences all the way down to the buying role for that individual. And think about that from a customer perspective. If one of your customers is on your website and you know that they're in IT, well, you want to make sure that they experience something very different than if it's the person who's going to be writing the check. So the whole new world of ABE allows people, or account-based engagement allows people, to create very customized experiences that have been extremely manual. Not new, don't get me wrong. Like, this concept has been around for 40 years.
Yep.
But we're now the tools are now available to do this digitally, and it's pretty much now being forced on us because of COVID. We can't do it now. The great news is, because we can do it digitally and the tools are now available, our cost around managing customers, the efficiency is now going through the roof. If you think about it, because instead of only being able to manage, call it 5 to 10 customers, or I can only engage with, call it a dozen opportunities or prospects. I can now do it at scale. I can do 40 or 50, and I can do it super efficiently with tools like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So that's I know a bit of a monologue, but I think it's the whole world is changing right now.
I agree. I agree. It's the ability to really customize that experience on the website. It pays off. It pays off for you. Um, your customers, they feel like you don't want to personalize down to the individual level necessarily. That's kind of creepy. But at the account level and knowing, hey, this is a group and this is how this group responds, dude, the results are great. So
Yeah,
before I let you
I was going
go
to
ahead.
say, yeah, one of the worst things you can do is say, hi, hi, Billy,
Oh
how
man.
are you? Like that kind of stuff. People started to do that, and it's terrible. The thing I would say is on all of these tools, be straightforward. The worst thing you can do is betray like trust. And by doing that is lying, trying to show that you're a bot or you're a human when you're a bot, or you know something you don't. Just
Yep.
be in all of these technologies, be honest, be very, very straightforward.
Agreed. Agreed. And then when you do that, like, hey, Billy, I think feel like 80% of the time it gets it wrong anyway.
I know. It's like, I'm not
It's
Billy.
gonna say,
Billy
hey,
was on my
Dave.
computer
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it gets it wrong. So
no, it's true.
oh hey man. Well, I've learned a ton. Is there anything else we should touch base on before we break this off?
No, the only thing I would say is like, because of what's happened with COVID, the world has changed. Don't get stuck in the trap of saying, okay, COVID's now starting to ramp down. Let's get
Yep.
back. Let's get back to how it was. Like the how it was is gone. Don't slide back into like the temptation to be like, okay, I can just do what I used to do. Disrupt yourself. Be like, as a marketer, as a sales leader, like you've you've got to think differently. You
Yeah.
find the opportunity, and if you do it, you'll be way ahead of your competition.
Yeah. If you keep innovating here, the other things are going to open back up, trade shows, events, go back, do those things still, but there's still a lot of innovation to happen just on the website and the digital experience. So
That's exactly
that's
right.
where you're going to get ahead because everyone's going to go back and start doing the trade shows once they're open again. So,
Don't fall into that trap.
oh hey Dave, I always
Cool.
learn a lot when we talk and really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, Billy.
Okay, we'll chat later.